Today, our guest is Pratik. Hi, Pratik, and he inhabits the role of a principal customer success manager, and he has worked in large organizations like Salesforce, where he has carried out large-scale transformation and engaged with clients in SaaS-based and other digital solutions, and navigating the customers into their digital roadmaps and bringing them to the best solutions. I find this role very interesting, Pratik, as we need the best of both worlds. Like, you need to be a delivery expert in the IT solution, as well as you need to understand the pulse of your customer and dealing with them. So over to you, Pratik. Why don't you give us a little more details about what are the critical deliverables of your role?
Thanks, Sudeshna. Thanks for inviting me over. A customer success manager role is a pretty unique role, and it's getting popularity predominantly because in the world of SaaS business, customer is actually contracted with a particular organization over a year, which means that they will decide every year whether they'll renew with a particular product or not. And as a customer success manager, our responsibilities is to ensure that customer derives value out of their investment. So if a customer has invested a particular amount with a particular product, they have particular goal in their mind that this is what they would want to derive. And as a success manager, our ultimate role is to make sure that the customers derive the value. If they have invested X in a particular product, they get that X plus Y. And we are there throughout this journey, right at the beginning when the product is getting implemented until the renewal, to make sure that we are handholding them, making sure that they're understanding our product and deriving the value out of it. So that's the high level objective of our role. But when it comes to revenue or cost reduction, we go one level below that. Then we will, if there's a services product, then we'll ask our customers, how do they see value from a services product? Is it true, if they're adding more customers, they shouldn't be adding more service people to serve those customers, and that is why they are going ahead with the technology. So then we help them map those metrics and then ultimately derive the value. So we call it as a value pyramid, where we have a revenue at the top and then we have metrics in the middle. But the most bottom level of the pyramid is the adoption part. You will not be able to derive value, either the revenue or the cost, unless people who are supposed to utilize the product utilize it, and not out of compulsion, wholeheartedly. Yeah. So we start at the bottom of the pyramid and then all the way walk the customer through that journey and then help them achieve that revenue or cost reduction goal and derive the value out of their investment.
So you've been involved in these large-scale transformations. So what would be the role of what would be your role? I understand that you have to be of value to the customer. The product becomes useful, but during these transformations, when they are in the process of getting the new solution, what would be your role in specific end to end?
Sure. So I would divide this into two. Is after the product is implemented and in the process of product is being implemented, I think customer success manager plays role in both these areas. Predominantly, more importantly, in the initial phase, because the product is getting implemented, there we act as a trusted advisors. We are more of a consultant. We help them on delivery. We help them on change management practices as well. So when it comes to technology product, most of the time a lot of focus is on the delivery and the governance related to it, and in an Indian context or otherwise, the change management aspect is not taken care pretty proactively, right? A majority of the customers would take that approach reactively. So they will implement a product, they will go to their users and ask, well, how is the product, if they are using it, why they are using it, if they are not using it. But that is more of a reactive approach. As a customer success manager, I come there and bring that proactiveness, and the process frameworks help me do that and run that change management more structurally. So governance, making sure that the project is delivered on time, making sure that if they're facing any challenges with respect to product, we help them, and setting up the change management, so that when people get the ultimate product, they know what is the product is all about, why they are using it, how they are using it.
Oh, great. So kind of you led me to my next question. My next question was, like we saw you using change management after being certified. We saw you using ADKAR. We saw you using the change management principles. So what in change management did you use extensively? What helped you in performing your role better?
Sure. So I think we talked about the delivery aspect, and in the world of software delivery there are known methodologies already. For example, you have agile, there's a scrum methodology. What a particular framework or a methodology does, it puts method to the madness, so that you can actually structurally do it and you can do it repeatedly. And I think I was looking for a particular structure when it comes to change management. I think we all agree that change management is important, but where to start? What is the step one, what is the step two, what is the step three? I think that's where the ProSci framework was very helpful when I did the certification course, which led me to the process. So there is a structural process. You have a phase one where you plan the change, then you implement the change, and sustaining a change was something new to me. That even after the change is accepted, to make sure that the change is durable over the period of time is also something that I was, very fascinated when I was learning. So I've used this framework for a large scale transformation. There are different tools that a particular framework applies, or gives you the opportunity to apply. So in process framework, I've used risk management assessment proactively at the start of the project. Most of the time, the digital transformation projects are led by technology team in India. So
Mhm.
they fail to kind of convince the senior management as to why there's a dedicated change management effort required. Most of the time, people at the top believe that if there is a mandate, people will ultimately fall, and then fall into their wish, and then they'll use the particular product. But how complex is the change that we are actually trying to implement? And everyone would say that it is complex or it is not so complex. But what the methodology or framework does, it helps me quantify that. So there are questions that
Yes.
you can ask to a customer. You say, okay, for example, is there a change of a similar nature that happened in past which failed miserably? If that question and the answer to that question is yes, that means when you are approaching
Really.
this particular change, people have a particular perception. It is a lot more difficult for this change, even if there is no fault of this particular delivery team, but just because they have a particular project in their mind where things did not go as per their expectation, they could actually have a bias about this change as well. So with a risk management framework and assessment, we kind of quantify the complexity of the project, and it helps us tell the management that this project is pretty complex and you need a dedicated change management effort to kind of during the implementation cycles to ensure that we have a success. Also, there's this process change triangle philosophy where you not only focus on change management and project management, but you also think through about the success factor. How does a success for a particular customer look like, right? At the end of the day, when the project is implemented, how will we say that we are successful? In the beginning, I talked about the revenue and the cost metrics and the metrics that lead to those metrics. We
Yes.
try to identify those success factors proactively. And trust me, it is a lot more difficult to do this exercise once the project is implemented, because the
Yeah.
focus there is all on adoption and utilization. You'll have some teething issues like every change goes through. So it is important to do this exercise while you are in the implementation phase. The criticality of the sponsor's involvement, right? It's not when a CFO or a CEO signs for a particular implementation, gives a budget approval, is their role ends there. If that's the case, the change is going to go through a turbulent phase during the implementation and even after that. So the criticality of sponsorship. So these aspects, again, quantified in a way that you ask questions, you score the questions in each of these category on change management, success, sponsorship, and project delivery, and tell them that this is where the problem is. And you don't do it only once, you do it month after
And
month to see, okay, in the beginning obviously the sponsorship involvement will be there, but once the change goes through the phase, 2 months, 3 months, I've typically seen that the sponsor involvement kind of slows
drops.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you bring that to the notice of the customer that we are doing great in the project delivery phase, we are approaching it in a structured manner, but if your sponsor is going behind the scene, then we are losing momentum. So again, quantifying it and giving it to a customer in a red, amber, green, that this is the area that we are doing good, this is the area which needs improvement, this is where we are horribly wrong and needs immediate action. So that's a process change triangle is a philosophy that I've used, and the all favorite at car framework. I think I've used that for a large scale transformation. Also, there are some small scale transformations where the entire exercise is not needed, or the customer doesn't have time, but then if they still want to understand what is it that they need to know about change management, then the EDCAR framework about awareness, the desire, and what's in it for me, the knowledge, the ability, and reinforcement. I think the Indian customers were already taking care of the knowledge and ability phase when it came to having a good user acceptance test framework or having a good training program in place, but they were missing the awareness as to why we are doing it, why we are doing it now. Also, the desire, what's in it for me. Most of the time, people think that the change or the software is brought in so that my managers could watch me or supervise me better. Uh, so a sales rep, for example, needs to use a system, but for the benefit of manager. Right? That is not the case, but that's the perception that is there on the
Perception.
ground. So
Mhm.
if with that perception out of compulsion, if people start using it, obviously you're not going to get the value out of it. So having that a car framework and tackling that awareness and desire phase is something that I've proactively used. So the ProSci framework also allows you to do that via a tool, Proxima tool, which I've heavily leveraged for a large scale, where people can see it quantified. We have those steering com meetings where those are presented to the stakeholders, and then they realize the importance of change management, and necessary course correction can be done. So yeah, a lot of tools. If there's a large scale transformation, you can use all of them, but basis the complexity that you derive out of the risk assessment, then you can mix and match to see what is the customer's appetite to
Mhm.
be part of this change management. You don't want to overload them with
Exactly.
all the frameworks and tools all the time, and then you take, as a customer success manager, use your judgment to utilize those tools to drive change management.
Okay, and I think you are answering my next question. Partly, also you've answered, but still, I would put it in this way that as a usual, the we say in quotes that usually change management is associated with communication and training. You spoke of a very important aspect of the sponsor buy-in and the continuous involvement of sponsors in it, and making that should be a continuous process. The sponsorship element you brought in very nicely in the before. So as I was saying, so other than training and communication, any other aspect of change management which you have used, which has benefited your stakeholders?
Absolutely. So I think the degree of impact for every stakeholder is going to be different. And that is something that I have realized, that there is no one size fits for all. So for example, if there is a sales org who is going to use a particular product, then you have different personas. You have a sales rep, you have their team leaders, then you have regional managers, you have CRO. The
Mm-hmm.
way each of these personas that they're going to get impacted because of this change is going to be different. So
Mm-hmm.
as part of the framework, I've also used the degree of impact framework of the change management, where you assess the change impact on 8 parameters like process, systems. At times I've seen that a particular tool is going to automate a particular thing. That means people who are going
To be
to
able to
who are doing the manual work,
man.
they will have to be addressed, because
Right.
they obviously, there's a different role that they need to play now in terms of using a product, but obviously they will have a perception in that mind that what I am doing today is going to be done by technology today. So is my job going to be redundant? At times I have also seen that the reporting structure get changed because of the change that is being implemented. So identifying the degree of impact on each of those personas, and then having a change management strategy based on the persona is also important. So in sales example that I gave, I think the degree for the sales rep came out to be significantly larger than any other persona. Then the
Mhm.
what's in it for me communication for them in terms of productivity, in terms of time that they will save out of this tool. They have the ability to use mobile app, which will allow them to have access to their data on the go. All these factors need to be addressed proactively. These may or may not be applicable to a CRO, right? So
Right.
one size fits for all is not going to help.
Not good.
And then that aspect, that which communication needs to go to what kind of stakeholders, and having a differentiated persona based strategy is something that I've learned as part of this framework, which I've used very proactively.
So now I really understand what you meant by when you said that as a customer success manager, that proactive addressing of maybe resistance, as you can call, that you could proactively see that this group would be facing these challenges and addressing that. So did change management help in spotting saturation in any way, or in your transformation projects, if you see saturation, how do you address that?
Yeah. So first, and it's a great question. The first way to identify is whether there is a saturation or not. And I would go back to the risk assessment that we do as part of this change management framework. So when you do a risk assessment, you check two attributes. You check the attributes of the change itself and the
Yeah.
attribute of the organization. And this
Yes.
saturation that you're talking about comes in the category of the organization attribute, where the change in isolation could be an easy change, but it could be possible that the people who are undergoing change, they have gone through the change management cycles multiple times in the in a particular year or a quarter. And then at times famously they say me whether I should be doing my job or I should be every quarter using a separate tool, right? So whenever that kind of saturation happens again, you have to address it proactively. If you have a bad experience, as I told you, from your previous implementation,
Past
address,
failures, yeah.
yeah, past failures, then address them head on. So you say that, okay, we know that this is what we're going through this change multiple times. At times you are replacing an existing tool with a new tool, and people certainly don't know why we are doing it. Everything was fine, I'm able to do my job. Why suddenly we are replacing a tool with a new tool? They don't find it necessary. So you address it proactively. You know uh, the forums that you choose for is like town halls, or you have a campaign around it, and then address it. The best way to address it top down. So you address it through a main sponsor, and then percolate that through the sponsorship chain that you have, and then the team management level. Yeah. So saturation could be a possibility. One is to identify it, and second is to proactively address it as to why we are doing it. Why this change is necessary, and why it is necessary now. Why couldn't it wait for another quarter or another year? And then address it proactively. See, resistance is going to be there in every change. It's a human
Mhm.
tendency to resist change. You balance a carrot and a stick approach. If you use only the carrot approach, where you incentivize people, then only few of them are going to use it, and we will have that adoption curve where you have ambassadors and many laggards while change adoption is concerned. But then if you blend the proactive approach with carrot and stick, where there's a constant communication from sponsorship as to this is why we need to use it, blended with some rewards and recognition around it, identifying change ambassadors, rewarding them or recognize them, then it goes a long way in the implementation phase. And by the time the product is implemented, people are more accepting the change than they would otherwise.
Okay. So you, as a principal customer success manager, what would be your advice to your fraternity on change management?
Yep. So I think change management, I would say, is an underrated aspect still, I believe. As a success manager, I think we can be proactive in educating the customers about change management, because I think what pandemic has done is it has accelerated the digital transformation. I still feel that delivery is the single most important factor that organizations pay attention to, and they lose it in the implementation phase to address the change management. Uh, from my personal experience, I would say that addressing change post the change is implemented is a lot more tougher than addressing it in the implementation stage proactively. So if you take, and then people are more open to addressing it as well. So if you can get your customer on board on change management during the implementation stage, have your customer nominate a dedicated change manager that you can work with, right? So that the same program manager is not kind of doing it for the sake of doing it. Have someone who has influence to uh, drive change, has a business relationship as well as tech relationship as a change manager that you can work with, and then do it in a manner that is digestible to the customer. Don't overload them with all the tools all the time, because the tools. Just assess the change complexity, the appetite of the customer, and then use your judgment to address it proactively.
Thank you. Thank you, Pratik. And that was very enlightening. And thank you for spending this time with us.
Thanks, Adeshna. It was great talking to you.